Alrighty, folks, coming at you guys today with the long-awaited all items tier list and 700 subscriber special. Thank you everyone for getting us to the 700 subscribers milestone. Been a ton of fun enjoying Pred with the goons here in the Cove. Been a great ride, a lot more number crunching in the spreadsheets to come, hero tier list to come, patch notes to cover, including ones that should be coming this weekend. So thanks everyone for the support. We're going to keep after it. Been a busy time of the year as far as uploads, but since the version 1.10 patch that this items tier list is based on, including all the new items, we have been live with you guys for a little over 65 hours, I think, plus some extra gameplay off screen, getting the hang of these new items, playing on the new hero Eden. It's been a lot of fun. So let's get right into it. All items tier list. Full disclosure, I am having to re-record this because I tried to record it the first time and I got about an hour in, and I was from Absolution down to Dynamo on an hour in. So I was very much over explaining these items. So I'm not going to be able to go through here and put all of these stats for each of these items on the screen and discuss all their stats like I was doing, because it's going to take 4 hours to get through this video. So hop over here to pred.gg if you are unfamiliar with these items or hear an item that you want to investigate further that I talk about. You can come in here, search for specific items. You know, let's search Demolisher, Demon Edge, whatever you want to search. That's why I have made all these item cards with the name and the symbol on every item, so that everyone, new players and returning players, or just players that are unfamiliar with the build system, can search up and view all of these items. Timestamps below to the final tier list if you just want to skip to that. I know this is going to be an extremely long video. Like I said, I spent an hour going from Absolution to Dynamo on the last take. So we're going to have to go through this a lot quicker. Let's get into it. Here's the tiers. S tier, always build. These are the items that at their role you should be building every game. A tier, always good value. These are items that maybe aren't built every single game, but every game you build them, you are going to get good value. You're going to see them built in pretty much every game by some hero on one team or the other. B tier, personal preference. These are maybe items that aren't always good value or always build type items, but if you personally prefer using that item over some of its competition or some of the items that are nearby it, as far as the role that you're playing, then build it, enjoy it. There are items that are, only good on specific heroes, or maybe a couple items that you're competing with on certain heroes. So that's a personal preference tier. I'm going to put some of my favorites in that tier that don't quite make it into the upper tiers. C tier, highly hero/comp dependent. Items that maybe have a lot of competition for their use case scenario, and maybe you can't get the full value out of them every game. Some of these could be personal preference for you. It's kind of a toss-up between B and C tier on, these are situational items, but which ones do you prefer? C tier will be the ones I prefer less or see people getting less value out of regularly, except for in niche hero or comp scenarios. And then D tier, rarely good value. Not going to be too many items in that one, I don't think. Most of the items are relatively balanced well right now. As of 1.10, we will see they'll probably tune it in a little bit tighter in the next patch. Let's get right into it. Pred.gg item page is where all these item images came from, linked below in the description and in the pinned comment if you want to come check all these out. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree or disagree with any of my placements? Are there any items that you're getting incredible value out of that I have placed too low? Let me know. We'll try them out on stream. Like I said, we've spent over 2 weeks now item testing with all these new item and crest additions. Let's get right into it. In alphabetical order, if you want to skip around in the video and try to find where I talk about a specific item, we will be going through them in alphabetical order. Final tier list, timestamped at the end. Absolution. Very, very highly hero comp dependent. Gives you CC benefits, gives you benefits from being CC'd with additional armors, gives you attack speed and magical armor, which is a really weird stat spread, but in certain niche scenarios, you could get decent value out of it. Abyssal Dart. I would say highly hero comp dependent again. This item, it's just okay. Gives you a new niche item with a ranged hit that allows you to teleport to an enemy hit, evolving off of the Rogue's Crest. Certain junglers that lack mobility could get good value out of this, or if you have good mobility, you can use it to accentuate your mobility, but it doesn't really compete, I think, as well with some of these strong options at Rogue Crest that you have. Eggs of Aguar, always build it. I mean, always build it. This item's incredibly good. This is your max health to physical power conversion item. Very strong on both solo laner and jungler bruisers that are building big health pools. Gives you a little bit of crit, gives you extra armors as well with a bonus additional armors when low health. Very strong. You're going to see it built every game. If you're building Overlord, you're building Eggs of Aguar. It's just how it is. A lot of solo laners and junglers love this. Alternator. This is highly hero or comp dependent. I would say it's borderline personal preference, but it's only personal preference if you're playing one of the heroes whose alternate ability this benefits from. This is % bonus damage on alternate abilities. On console, that is your right bumper. I'm not sure what the default keybind is on PC, but this is % bonus damage to alternate abilities, and then when it evolves, extra cooldown resets. Pretty decent on heroes like Zarus, heroes like Kalari, whose alternate abilities' main point is to deal damage, but if your alternate ability's main point is not to deal damage, if it's a mobility option or a CC option or something like that, then you don't really care about the alternator bonuses. But like I said, Zarus, obviously, Kalari. Let me know in the comments what other heroes are you getting good alternator value on. It's just kind of okay, right? It's very dependent. Amulet of Chaos, this is a new flat pin cooldown resetting on takedown mage item. I'm not seeing a lot of people really get good value out of it. I'm tempted to put it in the rarely good value category. It only gets value basically when you're getting takedowns. As far as a flat pin mage item goes, I would rather have Overseer. I would rather have Wraith Leggings on the majority of mages. Of course, if you are in a team fight and your team is progressing through the team fight, getting a takedown, resetting your cooldowns, getting a takedown, resetting your cooldowns, it could be very strong for some mages, but I don't see it. Let me know if I'm wrong. If it's helping you sweep team fights, let me know in the comments, but I'm not really seeing it. I'm not building it. Like I said, there's competition for what it does that I would take over it most of the time. Ashbringer, I think Ashbringer is always good value. An auto-attacking cooldown resetting option. Got a little bit of changes in 1.10 to where you have to have additional crit built with it to get the most out of it, but still your best option as far as the Techno, and in addition to the Technocrat minor augment for auto-attacking and resetting cooldowns quickly. A lot of heroes will benefit from that. Seraph, of course, used to benefit from it way too much, but still benefits from it. Boris, those type of fast attacking junglers that want to use their abilities frequently, right? Astral Cap. This is your anti-shield, but more importantly, your ult resetting mage option. Getting takedowns takes time off of your ult cooldown. This can be very strong if you're ahead in mid lane. Decent stat spread on it as well, coming with mana and haste. An okay item. It's a personal preference type item. I don't build it frequently, but I could see where people who like to use their ult frequently in mid lane would build it. The Gideons, the Gadgets, those type of guys. Maybe Faye, of course, as well. Mid laners that want to use their ult frequently gives you, faster use of your ult, right? So why not build it? Augmentation, kind of in the same boat. Not too many heroes that want to build something like Augmentation. You have Augmentation, Rapture, and Earthshaker as your three attack speed and health items. Augmentation being only one of three that gives that type of stat line, has got to secure it a spot a little bit higher than the comp and hero dependent. Of course, there are only a couple heroes that you want to build this on, but on those heroes, you're going to get great value out of it, right? Thinking about your crunches, anyone who's going to be building big health and also auto-attacking can get solid value out of this. You got to mix in some Spellblade procs as well, though, to get the most out of it. So it's decent. I don't personally prefer it over Earthshaker or Rapture. I would take both of them over it the majority of the time, but it's still pretty decent. Azure Core, clearly always good value. Alchemical Rod, the tier 2 off of this that gives you the mana stacking and mana conversion to magical power, is a must build on the majority of solo laners right now. Gives you big mana pool, gives you big power by the end of the game, especially in combination with other high mana items. Gives you a decent passive proc as well for a shield. I'm a big fan of it, and it's a really easy go-to for most mids, right? Basilisk. I would probably put this above the personal preference tier. Realistically, Basilisk and Viper, the stacking armor shred items, both got buffs in 1.10 and compete better now with the percent pin items. A very solid option. Gives you a move speed bonus as well when you've stacked it up to high. What? Hold on, there's a cat in here. Look at that. What are you doing in here? Alrighty, back at it. Had to deal with the surprise cat entrance. Yeah. Anyway, Basilisk, solid item. You really benefit from it on anyone who's repeatedly attacking, and the armor shred on it is going to give you more damage added than pretty much any just power number that you can get, which is why it adds so much damage on heroes like Chimera in the jungle. Anytime you're playing against a tank solo laner, Basilisk is going to give you huge value. Just a little bit above personal preference. I think more people should be building it, especially since the buffs that they got. Armor pin is so necessary for dealing damage. Berserker's Axe, it's kind of borderline hero/comp dependent, but I do kind of view it in a similar light, I guess, to Alternator. It's another one of these health, haste, power, physical power items that gives you bonus damage, gives you a nice proc, gives you movement speed, kind of gives you some unique stuff. But if you don't have a leap or a dash, you can't proc its bonus damage. And other than that, what is it giving you? You know, it's giving you 3% move speed or 4% move speed, and then some extra move speed when you pass through fog walls. So decent for mobility, but you got to have a dash or a leap to proc it, as opposed to like augmentation that procs on any ability, right? Brutalix, very highly hero or comp dependent. This is the cleanse item that evolves off of the Warrior's Crest. The Warrior's Crest has good other evolution options, and I'm not looking at Brutalix as the one I'm taking, unless it's against like a Fae or Aurora or some predictable cleansable CC that I'm trying to avoid. If I'm against an Aurora solo lane, though, I will likely take Brutalix as my Warrior Crest evolution. Cat Drive. This is I want to put it in personal preference because I do like Cat Drive, but it is too highly hero or comp dependent. It's kind of a bait item because you have to build it first in order to have any chance of getting it stacked up in a timely manner. And if you're not against a magical solo laner, the magical armor that Cat Drive gives is going to be worthless at the beginning of the game, and you're trading off building anti-heal or building lifesteal as a first item to build Cat Drive and then stack it for extra armors late game. So it's just okay. It takes a while to get online, or else it would be really strong. 2-tier or comp dependent. Caustica, it's your percent pin item, man. It's your percent pin item as a mid laner. Comes with mana sustain as well. Percent pin is incredible. This will give you as much armor pin as, 4 or 5 flat pin items by the end of the game against almost everyone. Even more valuable against tanks. Solid extra passive for bonus damage as well. Cannot turn down Caustica, man. It's either build Caustica and Magnify, or build one or the other, but you got to have one or the other at the least. If you're in a damage role and your goal is to deal damage, I'm looking at mid, I'm looking at carry, build percent pin bottom line. Citadel probably should be in the personal preference tier, but I'm going to put it in the highly hero or comp dependent tier. I'm not seeing a lot of people pick it up. You will occasionally see your health bruisers pick it up. It does have a good stat line with physical armor, power, health, bonus armors when you're around multiple enemies. So it is a very strong stat line, but it's basically just a stats card. It doesn't give you too much more than that. It does give you effective bonus damage, even in 1v1s. So it's a solid item. Maybe you could personally prefer it, but if I would slide it up to personal preference, I would definitely be sliding Cat Drive up because I'm a big fan of Cat Drive. Claw of Hermes. It's highly hero or comp dependent, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments. Is this item really that strong? I'm going to put it in rarely good value for now. We may adjust it at the end here, but outside of Bellica, I'm not really interested in building this on anybody. It gives you mana drain and bonus ability damage against low mana targets, but who do I really want that on? Like, I guess if I'm against a gadget and they're managing their mana really poorly, or something like that, maybe I could get good value out of it. But outside of Bellica, who's got extra mana drain synergy, it's not a mage item that I'm really looking to spend one of my 6 item slots on, you know. If you wanted to get the most out of it, you would have to probably build it first item when your opponent mage doesn't have great mana sustain. And even then, like, I just don't know if I'm really that big of a fan of it, you know, on anyone except Bellica, of course. Bellica, great value for sure. Combustion, it's always good value. It's a flat pin, mana, magical power item with a bonus clearing proc. It's probably your best, if not your best, in almost every scenario. Clear, speed boosting mage item. So you gotta appreciate that. It has good synergy. It has good synergy with Alkrod. Doesn't come with every stat you want, but just about every stat you want as a mid laner, right? So very solid all throughout the game. Good scaling as well. Crystalline, or not Crystalline, Curious. Cresselia, Spellblade proc, mana sustain item, generally built on supports. You hit your Spellblade proc, you get extra cooldowns, gives you solid haste. This is pretty much a cheaper version of Time Warp that you can get online earlier. I think more mages could benefit from it than people build it on. I think all ranged supports benefit from it pretty heavily with the mana sustain that it gives at a cheap price. Spellblade proc's decent too, especially if you're stacking it with something like Magnify. Well, Magnify doesn't give a spell. It still gives a Spellblade proc, right? Or no? Anyway, like Oathkeeper and other Spellblade procs, Elefrost, you could stack it with those. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty nice, huh? Crystal Tear, I think, is kind of accepted as the best heal boosting item. The amount of mana sustain that it gives is very significant. The passive proc that it gives for extra magical power and haste is very beneficial on anyone like Narb, Morn, who's proccing it on the majority of their team at once. It's super good for team fights and objective takes in that way. And like I said, a ton of mana sustain on it at a cheap price. One of your best heal boosting items in the game. Personal preference, because you're not always a healer. You may not prefer this. If you're going to go tank Morn or tank Narb or something like that, you're probably still looking to sneak this in realistically, but maybe not every single game, right? Crystalline Curious, I'm going to slide it above these other highly hero or comp dependent items because it is essentially your best pure magic armor health tank item in the game. If you're against a 4 or 5 magic damage comp for some reason, Crystalline Curious is your best single magic armor by itself item in the game. Kind of close with Cat Drive maybe. Those are kind of close to neck and neck. But as a pure magical armor item, Crystalline Curious has got everything beat. So quite nice. Cursed Ring. You've probably seen a lot of Cursed Ring recently. One of the new items gives a multiplier to your attack speed at the cost of reduced damage. A decent stat line too, giving both physical and magical power, so quite interesting. I can't really put it in always good value because it allows on-hit carry builds to compete with the full crit builds, but in those scenarios, the full crit build is still usually better, at least the scaling throughout the game, unless you're going to throw on like Spectra, Sky Splitter, or Cursed Ring right off rip. The full crit build is going to compete with them at most stages of the game better until you're close to attack speed cap. At the end of the game, this does raise the attack speed cap, which is what makes on-hit builds viable. The only reason that I would slide it up to always good value is because of how broken it makes the Mage Prophecy Orion builds that you're seeing approach or appear on Zinx and Bellica and the likes. Those are extremely overpowered right now. So I do expect this to get nerfs. We're going to put it in the personal preference tier. Cursed Scroll, kind of an odd item, right? Gives bonus damage on your auto attacks based on your built max health, but also deals that damage to you at the same time. So it's solid if you're building it in the Aegis of Agawar, like a Noxian Quiver type build where you're planning on going low health, where the damage will no longer be applied to you but will continue to be applied to your opponents. it can be very strong on heroes like Greystone, Bale, who are comfortable fighting at low health. But outside of that Aegis of Aguilar, Overlord, plus a Noxian type build with Curse Scroll, you can't really just throw it into most builds and really benefit from it that much, because you have to have big health build to really get the most out of it. So personal preference, I think it is really good in those scenarios that that it's applicable in, but not in much else. Dawnstar, I kind of want to sneak it into highly hero or comp dependent, but realistically it's rarely good value. Its bonus, or its enemy damage reduction overall as you continue to hit them with auto attacks, and then when you apply CC, you gain extra attack speed, which is quite nice on certain heroes like Crunch, Grux. Comes with physical armor as well, so you can use it as a tempo item in solo lane, but that's really the only good use case scenario for it. It is fun for that, but it's kind of a very niche use case scenario. Deathstalker, not incredibly strong for sure. I guess that's probably a good thing, because if it was strong, it would probably feel overpowered. I'm going to slide it into highly hero or comp. I'm going to leave it at just rarely good value, man. Unfortunately, this is an item I want to be good. It converts your flat physical pin into attack speed, but it's almost never worth it over Viper. Viper is just a better version of Deathstalker, right? Does it have an interesting stat line? Yes. Is it fun on certain heroes? Yes. Is it broken in ARAM on Sparrow when you're stacking up 40 plus flat pin? Yes, it is super broken in those scenarios, but overall just not, doesn't compete with Viper for the same thing. Demo, crit, percent pin, build your percent pin every single game. If you're not building percent pin and you're playing a damage dealing role, you are throwing the game. You are trolling your team by not building percent pin at a damage dealing role, because just like Caustica, Demo is going to give you the equivalent of 4 or 5 flat pin items by itself by the end of the game. The amount of just level up physical armor that heroes get is so significant. This will give you extra damage, not just against tanks, but also against your opponent. Carry, you get so much physical armor in this game for free, you have to build percent pin. Demon Edge, this is your anti-shield flat pin physical item. Very rarely is this going to be good value for you. If you happen to be up against some crazy comp where they have multiple shield proccers, you could build Demon Edge as an assassin jungler, but that's a very rare scenario that you're going to get good Demon Edge value over its competition of other flat pin items. There's so many other good flat pin items on the physical side of things. You don't need to be trying to force Demon Edge into a build by any means. Devotion, I would slide it into always good value because I think it is very good, but we're going to put it in personal preference because similar to Crystal Tier, you've got to be on a healer to get the most out of it. This is your heal boosting magic armor item, gives you bonus healing and shields when the ally that you're healing is low health. Very solid on every healer, basically your best magic armor item at the support role, so highly recommend it. As that role. I was building Void Conduit pretty much most games, or Spellbreaker, but I think Devotion is just the clear-cut best magic armor item for healers right now. Draconum, borderline always build. It's always good value. Anyone that's healing, if you've been playing the game, you know how unbalanced anti-heal is. Amena, for some reason, have left healing in a ridiculously strong state and have refused for a long time to buff anti-heal, which means Draconum, as a heal boosting item on the physical armor side of things, is incredibly strong. You're going to see it built on one team or the other, probably multiple copies of it every game because healing is so strong right now. Build it on your healers, build it in combination with your lifesteal items, and basically become invincible through healing. Dread, this is a very niche item, but it's kind of in the same vein as Absolution. It is a damage-adding magical armor item, which can be valuable if they have a high magic armor comp. Mitigates damage similar to Mist Meadow, where it's on a cooldown, and when you take magical damage, you take reduced magical damage for the following couple seconds. Very strong if they have multiple big magical threats. It's on a cooldown, unfortunately, similar to Absolution, but I think they belong in the same tier, which is either C tier or D tier. To be honest with you, but I think I like them in C tier just for those, in those niche scenarios, they're very good. Dreambinder, Realistically a personal preference type item, but it does give a great stat line, a lot of health, a lot of power, and a slowdown proc to mages is quite solid. Goes well with World Breaker, goes well on those big health Orb of Growth type World Breaker builds for mages, but you can also shoehorn it into some mages or some support type mages. Mourn, benefits from the big health and the slowdown proc. Just a solid item with a good stat line. Dust Devil, borderline always good value, but it's really kind of more like personal preference, if not highly hero or comp dependent, just because of its competition. This is an attack speed crit item, but you've got so many attack speed crit items to choose from. You've basically got to be playing a carry that already has a move speed stem to really get the most out of this the majority of the time. I'm talking about Sparrow with the Invis augment, I'm talking about Murdoch, I'm talking about maybe Kira Twin, who have movement speed on their own, and this can accentuate it, because if you don't have move speed and you just have Dust Devil, it's not going to be that noticeable. And then the other way around, if you just have mobility abilities and you don't have Dust Devil, then it is what it is, right? You're just reliant on Murdoch move speed boost, which isn't that strong anyway. But when you combo with Dust Devil, it does feel quite strong. So highly hero comp dependent in that way, but I realistically prefer it over Lightning Hawk. I know that might be a hot take, but I think it's really neck and neck with Lightning Hawk in most scenarios. Dynamo, very solid item, great stat spread on it, gives you pretty much everything you want at support other than mana sustain. If you're any support that's proccing CC, that bonus damage dealt to targets after you CC them is incredibly valuable. Dynamo's a must build on most supports, whether it's first item or second item. You're trying to get it early for that bonus percent damage. Quite strong with a great stat spread, like I said. Earth Spirit, this is the new crest evolution off of Titan's Crest. Turns you into a boulder, aka Geb rollout, aka Geodude use rollout, aka roly-poly mode as we sometimes call it on the stream. It's actually surprisingly good. It is hard to control your movement with it, in which direction you go, but if you need to go somewhere quick in a straight line, it can get you there fast. It makes you unstoppable when you're doing it, and it comes with CC coming out of it. If you're able to roll all the way into a fight, you get a little bit of extra CC there. So solid item, surprisingly good, but hard to control, highly hero comp dependent. If you're playing a tank that wants to dive, it can help you get there for sure. Earthshaker, I probably am going to have to put Earthshaker and Rapture in the same tier here as augmentation. It's personal preference which one of those two, or if you want all three, you could potentially build all three. A solid item, bonus ability damage, a bonus percent ability damage, which stacks up as you're dealing damage, is quite nice. Some heroes it just massively benefits, some heroes it doesn't, but it is one of only 3 health and attack speed items. So if it's the one you personally prefer, I would build it. It's one that I personally prefer for sure. Echelon Cloak, it's a troll item. It's a troll item, but it does have good use case scenarios if you want to force it in. This is the item that makes you invisible when you stand still for a few seconds, but it does come with a good stat line, does come with health and mana sustain, so if you want to troll with it, go for it. It's just, you're only building it to troll, you're not really building it too seriously, right? Elefrost. Borderline always good value because it's so unique. It is the only mana sustain, health, and physical armor item that you can build, right? I don't think there's another one in the game. You've got Golem's Gift, but that gives you physical armor, magical power, and no health. Elefrost gives you that health pool, gives you a Spellblade proc for a slow, and additional clear. Does great damage for clearing jungle as well. You've got so many good jungle options now for tanks between Elefrost, Inquisitor, and Fire Blossom, so a solid item. Personal preference if you want it to as one of your clear boosting items as a tank jungler, or as your mana sustain item in solo lane, or whatever it may be. Inra's Blessing, this is an odd one. One of the new items, probably 2 hero and comp dependent. This gives additional shields to your allies. I'll pull it up here because it is just a weird item. 15 haste on it too is not bad. Magical power, max health, max mana, 15 haste. While within 1,000 units of an ally hero, if they are immobilized, grant them a shield which does have both max built health and magical power scaling for 3.5 seconds. It's just kind of odd because it has an odd stat line, but it does have good range because it's within 1,000 of an ally unit, and they are immobilized, they gain a shield, and it's only on a 15-second cooldown, so not bad. I didn't actually know that it was on that short of a cooldown. I thought for some reason this was on like a 30-ish second cooldown, but it's not per ally. That's just the item cooldown is the thing. So if multiple teammates are getting CC'd in a team fight, this is not going to repeatedly proc on them. On everybody, it's not per ally like some items are, so just 2 hero or comp dependent. You're probably not building it most games and getting great value out of it, but you definitely could force it in on a multi-shield build. Entropy, kind of a personal preference mid lane item, gives you bonus damage per ability damage instance based off of your max magical power. Some heroes that do tick damage really benefit from it. Like Git ult's going to do extra damage, Gadget Projector, Gadget ult's going to do a lot of extra damage. It's actually not too bad on Shinbi or Akron and well, other heroes that are doing tick damage, they'll definitely appreciate it. Picking back up with Envy. Envy, still a decent item. I remember the days of this item being just ridiculously overpowered. Fun to build on junglers when you get ahead. Comes with a silence, comes with a free crit. I'm going to say highly hero or comp dependent. I used to always build it on Zarus when I would get ahead and just show up on people, hit them with the crit and the silence, and it was quite fun. But you still see some people building it and getting good value out of it, but it's kind of hard to, doesn't surpass some of the other flat pin assassin items. Epoch, or Stasis as we usually call it, pretty decent. A lot of the times it's just delaying the inevitable when you hit it, when you hit the Stasis. This evolves from the Mage Crest, obviously, but sometimes that can give your team time to rotate to the fight, or time for you to turn around and aim your blink out if your blink is ready. But of course, if you're in a 1v1, your opponent will be ready for you to come out of that Stasis and probably still cook you. Equinox, a solid item, really on par, I would say, with Dust Devil most of the time. Doesn't quite compete with some of the attack speed crit items that are more favorable. But I think it really is on par with Dust Devil. It's not too hero or comp dependent. It's just like you building the same thing on most carries anyway, and Equinox really isn't one of the ones that you're looking for every single game, But if it's a personal preference for you, I understand. Everbloom, really strong in ARAM, but I don't think quite competes with the other heal boosting items. Doesn't give mana sustain like the other heal boosting items, does give health. But I would say Crystal Tier is most of the time better than it. Giving teammates extra damage mitigation is really nice, but I don't think it applies to you. I think they changed it a while back to where it doesn't apply on self-heals and shields, which makes sense, but still, Crystal Tier applies on you and your allies, so I think Everbloom should probably too, but it's alright. It's just super comp dependent, not as elite as the other heal items. Eviscerator, I used to kind of undervalue this one. I think now with Cursed Ring being in the mix, those crazy on-hit super attack speed builds are definitely more viable. I'm going to put it in personal preference because does it give you a dash or a cleanse like the other carry crest options? Not really, but it's still, if you're on the on-hit Cursed Ring type build, you're going to be able to do great things with Eviscerator, especially against tanks. Now, Exodus, another story completely. I think Exodus is the best carry crest evolution. Granted, it might get some nerfs here in the next patch. I think that offering an extra ranged projectile to your carry with the CC that it has is quite strong. Damage added as well. It can help you get out of fights, reposition in fights better, and it can hit multiple targets, which is quite nice. So I think you're always getting good value out of Exodus. If you just learn how to use it, if you haven't tried it out, give it a try. I think it's, in most games, the best carry crest option. Fire Blossom. Fire Blossom realistically is kind of always good value, I would say. It makes it really hard if you build this in solo lane. It makes it really hard for them to 1v1 you. Pretty much any physical damage solo laner is going to have a hard time sticking to you long enough to 1v1 you with this. You'll see tank supports build this as well. You'll see tank junglers build this as well for the camp clear. I think you're never really building Fire Blossom and suffering from it, other than the fact that it doesn't come with ability haste. It's just a really solid physical armor item for extra damage added. Fist of Razul, I don't really know how they nerf this item, or I mean buff this item I should say, to make it better, because it's just not applicable on most heroes to really get great value out of it. Yes, you clear minions faster. Yes, you get health and healing and all that from it. But there's a select few solo laners that you would really even consider this on, and that's about it. Nobody else is going for Fist of Razul. And even then, you probably a tank solo laner, if anything, if you're considering Fist of Razul. Fluorescence, this is the bouncy mushroom crest evolution. It is an always build. I'm absolutely kidding you guys. Fluorescence is complete trash. It's so situational, so impossible to really get good value out of this. Is it a spectacle when the enemy team's Morn jumps on top of this and then Spider Morns himself over some massive cliff? Yes, it is. Is it easy to use? Absolutely not. It's so hard to get your team to coordinate around this, because you can't just place it down and then walk onto it. You have to place it down and then jump onto it, which means getting that off in a team fight scenario is pretty much never going to happen. Very rarely good value on this. Just stay away from Fluorescence unless you're trolling, and then it's quite fun. Flux, a solid magical armor item, gives damage added. Any armor item that gives damage added, like Flux does, like Elefrost, like Fire Blossom, is going to have to be in the upper half of the tier list. Citadel, you could probably make an argument for up here as well, now that I'm looking at it. We'll probably adjust that around at the end. But Flux, if you're not against a magical, it's not going to be worth anything. But if you are against a good magical solo laner, it can help you a lot. If you're also dealing magical damage, in combination with something like Fire Blossom and Tainted Guard as well, gives you solid magical damage added. So we'll take it. Frosted Lure, we've tried to make Frosted Lure work, man. It's just the proc is so inconsistent, and it just doesn't do enough damage, man. There's really no reason for you to be building this. No support would take this over the other physical armor options. I don't see it with Frosted Lure. If you've had good success with Frosted Lure, let me know. But we've tried and cannot really make it work for us. Frost Guard, at one time, was the only armor item that gave you both physical and magical armor item. Now it is not, but it's still a solid item. Pretty hero or comp dependent though, because it relies on slowing down enemy auto attacks when they hit you. If they don't have at least 2 or 3 auto attackers on their team, I don't really see the draw to Frost Guard over some of the other new armor items that we've got in the last patch. So it's comp and hero dependent, but if they do have 3 auto attackers, then I would definitely consider it. Gaia Greaves, really strong movement speed, really strong movement speed buff from Gaia Greaves. An extra damage proc, good physical armor. Probably, this is definitely on the tier of Elefrost with what it gives you, because mobility is hard to match. Getting around the map way quicker with Gaia Greaves. I would definitely recommend trying it on like Bale and some junglers as well. I know it used to be very favorable on Chimera, but you don't see it as much anymore. A solid item. If it's a personal preference item for you, I will not blame you at all. Galaxy Greaves, a good stat spread, mana sustain, and split armors. With the Moon Boots jump, of course. I don't think it's as viable anymore. I think there's really good support item competition for it. You don't have to build it for the mana sustain first. You can build other options. Doesn't come with health, but it does come with some haste. So a decent item if the comp permits it. If you're playing Decker and you just want to have an extra high jump, stuff like that, you can definitely get good value out of it. It's quite fun. Speaking of extra jumps, Gaussian Greaves or Gussian Greaves, I guess it was either way. It's got to be kind of the same situation as Galaxy Greaves. Gives you an extra jump. You can now triple jump with Decker. You can double jump with most heroes. Gives you an on landing or on hitting the ground little damage effect. A decent stat spread on it too. It is in the Mage Tree, so it gives magical power. Check that out in the Mage Tree if you haven't seen it yet. Just a really niche item. You're probably realistically rarely getting good value with it, but I have seen people use it to great effect for navigating the map quicker. Giant's Ring, probably just too highly hero and comp dependent. It competes with a lot of physical armor items, of course, but as a true tank, it is really solid, but you have to be playing a tank that wants to ult in the fights and stay in the fights while ulting. You're thinking about, obviously, the elephant in the room, get it because of how big he is. Rampage does great with Giant's Ring, whether he's tiny ramp or big ramp. Giant's Ring is a great effect on him, but some other tankier supports, maybe if you can swing it, but mainly junglers and solo laners that want to ult in fights do well with Giant's Ring. But it's kind of niche still, you know. It's like I said, it's just got a lot to compete with. Golem's Gift, this is a damage adding armor item. Gonna go in the personal preference for me. A lot of times if you're playing Quang, if you're playing Shinbi, if you're playing a magical solo laner against a physical solo laner, Golem's Gift is probably your best first item because it gives you that power, it gives you that mana sustain, it gives you that mitigation, and that's a really good mix to come out with. No health pool on it, but competes with Elefrost as the only other physical armor mana sustain item in the game. They should both be in the personal preference tier for sure. Gravitum, I'm really not a fan of. Coming off of the Warrior's Crest upgrade, it has infinite range, which is like an interesting draw, but it doesn't have a slow effect. It has a grounded effect, which is a new effect that prevents enemies from using mobility abilities or jumps, leaps, and stuff like that. It's not on a very long duration either when you hit them, so you can't necessarily use this to catch up to people, but you can use it in the middle of a fight to like keep a Greystone from jumping out or keep a Bale from jumping out or something like that. It just very rarely are you gonna like get good. Honestly, this probably should go in rarely good value because the crests that it competes with are so good and so consistently valuable that by comparison this is just rarely going to give you that kind of value. Hexbound got a little bit of a change in 1.10 to where now it does give you additional mana the lower your mana is, on top of the mana that you get for taking damage, so that's a pretty solid combination. It does come with 20 haste as well and a good chunk of armor at a cheap price. There's only a few heroes that you're really considering it on, and that's mana hungry tank supports. For the most part, you could build it on some solo laners that are mana hungry, but other than that, it's going to be pretty hero dependent whether you get value with this. But on those heroes like Narbash and stuff where you are mana hungry and do expect to be taking damage, it can give you great value. Icecorn, speaking of Warrior's Crest that get better regular value than Gravitum, Icecorn is kind of the definition of that, right? Icecorn, it's been a staple for so long. Slows the enemy, speeds you up. It's on a short cooldown. You can use it a bunch. You can use it to like, help your team out on objectives, help your team out on team fights. It's a very small buff, but the fact that it's on such a short cooldown, it just means you can constantly benefit from it. So I quite like that. Imperator, I don't think it would be a hot take for me to put Imp in always build. If you're building 100% crit as the carry, or elsewhere, I guess, as the jungler, but as the carry, one of your 5 crit items should be Imperator, or 4 if you're building Plasma Blade. It's just massive damage added. If you're relying on your auto attacks for damage, this is massive damage added. Even if you're building 80% crit, you should probably be considering Imperator as a must-build item. Infernum really relies on the other team having big armor to get its tick and bleed value out, and also for you to have solid pin on top of it. Is good for assassins. There is actually some carries that make good use out of it, like Twin Blast. You could probably even make good use out of it on Eden, I would say, but you would not benefit from the mana that it comes with. So I'll put it in highly hero or comp dependent because, one, you have to be playing a carry that's going to benefit from that, or an assassin, and 2, the other team has to have multiple high armor targets to really get the good Infernum damage out of it. But it is a good stat line, does come with mana to combo with Resolution and Mind Razor. Inquisition, man, this is a really solid one. Comes with a great stat line, fast jungle clear, does it really break into the always good value? I think it kind of does. I think Inquisition, because it's the magical equivalent kind of to Fire Blossom, gives you health and mana, gives you magical armor, gives you a great damage proc on a short cooldown, good for clearing camps, or for being the tank that's also putting out damage. In combination with like the Fire Blossom Flux Matrix Tainted Guard build, you can be tanky and still deal quite a bit of damage with Inquisition. You're seeing it built frequently, mainly on supports, but also tank jungles, and you can flex it into solo lane quite well. So I think just because it's valuable in 3 roles, we're going to call it always good value. And it's really not enemy team comp dependent either. You're going to get value out of it either way. Judgment, more valuable than Gravitum, like I said, with pretty much all the other Warrior Crest options. I don't know if I want to put it on the level of Icecorn because I don't think it's as consistently valuable as Icecorn. Icecorn is like borderline almost always good value. Judgment does give you a nice little heal when you hit it, but if you're not building any heal boost, it's kind of too small to be that noticeable. Can help you with faster camp clear and stuff like that, but it's not a huge difference. So I would say comp dependent if you're building someone who's building multiple. If you're building like Draconum and Void Helm and you have big healing boost, then Judgment's just a nice little extra damage proc and a little extra heal. Leaf Song, you don't have that. You have decent options, I guess, coming off of the crest upgrade, but I feel like I don't know. I guess I'm going to put it in personal preference. I think Leaf Song in the team fight scenarios where you can boost up multiple of your team with that movement speed to chase down fights or escape and reposition around fights, it is just incredibly valuable. It is a solid move speed boost, and when comboed with other move speed boost, really gets you to ridiculous numbers. Hitting a Leaf Song while your Kira is ulting, super valuable. Hitting a Leaf Song while your Rena is ulting, super valuable. Hitting your Leaf Song and then hitting the move speed March boost from Narbash, incredibly valuable for team fights. That movement speed, that AoE movement speed is pretty much unmatched in this game outside of Narbash's March ability. Legacy, really on par with kind of Citadel, I would say. A solid magical armor option, got a little bit better, gives you CC immunity when you go low health, could be comboed with some of the other low health proccing items like Salvation and stuff, but I don't know, it definitely doesn't compete with like Inquisition. Doesn't really, it's probably close to Flux Matrix, but you just have really good magic armor items outside of Legacy that you're usually looking at more favorably, like Void Helm, for example. Liberator, this is your cleanse item off of the Carry Crest upgrade. I think it's got to go in the personal preference tier because if you, it is comp dependent because you don't necessarily need it on against comps where there's not like a Richter or not an Aurora or something like that where you're worried about being CC'd for a long duration, but it does give you a shield, and generally that could be enough in most situations if you're willing to hit it to survive just long enough to get your damage out, which is really solid. I don't know though, because Exodus is so good. Eviscerator is actually kind of sneakily good. Cleanse, there's a lot of situations where you're going to cleanse and die anyway. It's just the shield does make me want to put it up there. So I think it's on par with the Eviscerator most of the time. It's just that the on-hit builds are like Eviscerator really benefits the on-hit builds. Liberator really, you don't want to use it just for the shield. You want to use it to cleanse a Richter ult or something. So we're going to put it in comp dependent. If they do have an Aurora Richter, it is very good. If not, you have better carry crest options. Lifebinder is, it's pretty comp dependent, to be fair, but yeah, I gotta put it in comp dependent because if you're not running a healer mage, it's really not worth it. A healer mage that you can consistently deal damage to the other team with. So Morgash obviously is a great example. Countess is a good example. But even in those cases, I kind of prefer your other lifesteal items better. The Overseer and Magnify I kind of both prefer over Lifebinder the majority of the time. But sometimes you're going to build all three. In those cases, Lifebinder is good value, but it's a little bit hero dependent there, right? Life Core, I think it's As the new item that can give your allies some heals when you deal damage, it's okay at doing that. It usually doesn't stack up to that much healing, but if you build it in combination with a healer support, like if you're building Zinx, throw this life core on it. If you're building a Fae support with the heal flower, throw life core on it, extra healing. That is a pretty solid use case scenario. Make some of those mages that you want to flex into support more viable with the heals, but not incredibly strong or anything. Pretty comp dependent, because those are really the only people you want to be building it on. Lightning Hawk, I probably have to put in always good value, right? It's just kind of been and probably will continue to be the go-to attack speed crit item. Has a good proc to slow people down and deal extra damage. Just consistently solid, really strong stat line too. It's been the go-to crit item for so long on so many carries. First item built, Lightning Hawk, on a lot of carries. So I think it is pretty much always good value. No carry really is hampered by building this as one of their 5 crit items. Lucky Feather, I gotta put in rarely good value. It's kind of a troll, man, because you build it in jungle. The general pace that you need to keep up in jungle most games is too fast for you to play passively with this Lucky Feather and try to stack it. And you have better stacking items to go first item, like Overlord and Manta Scythe. So I don't really see it. You could build it, of course, and play cautiously, and you will get good value out of it, but that's a very rare scenario. Lunaria is good. It is a solid item. I think I'm going to say highly hero comp dependent, because I don't think it matches how good like Crystal Tear is as a heal boost item, or even Devotion most of the time, but it is a solid heal boost item, comes with haste. It is your only option for like healing with Muriel. Like if you build Life Core and Lunaria on Muriel, it does give you a little bit of healing on top of the shields that you're dishing out, which is nice, but it's not a super consistent proc similar to the Life Core. But that is a good 2-item combo for heroes like Fae, for heroes like Muriel, who are not traditional like super healers, but it will mitigate that healing and give them some extra. Lux Forge Lantern. I've been seeing actually more people build this than you would think. I think it is pretty decent. I'm actually going to put it in personal preference. I haven't played around with it a bunch, but I've seen people get good value out of it. This gives you stacking extra power when taking out wards. Junglers will sometimes pick this up. We saw Kalari the other day pick this up and do well with it. Supports can pick this up, although it is a weird stat line to pick up at support. If you're destroying wards, hey, you get good stats. You get extra stats for destroying wards. What's not to like? I guess it is pretty comp dependent. It probably doesn't deserve to be in the personal preference tier. I mean, if it is your personal preference, I won't blame you. But unless you're playing against if you're playing against a Wraith, then absolutely pick this up. You're going to stack it super quick. Otherwise, the stat line is just weird and awkward for supports. Junglers can benefit from it pretty well, though. Magnify, I feel like we have to put it in always build, man. If you're not building Constigo, you're building Magnify. A lot of games you're going to build both. What a great stat spread. Comes with Omnivamp, comes with health, comes with haste. Everything you really want, man. As a mage, really everything you want. The most important part by far, though, is percent armor shred. Stacking percent armor shred is incredibly valuable. Like I said, you can use that as a replacement to Constiga, but you pretty much have to have it most every game if you're not building Constiga at mid lane. If you're building Constiga, of course, you can leave it out, but just so incredibly valuable. So many solo laners are completely reliant on it too. Any magical solo laner, you are 100% reliant on Magnify as your first or second item, basically, to fight in solo lane in the slightest. Magical junglers are going to build it every single game, so it just has to be up here. You're going to see it on one team or the other on multiple heroes every game. At least you should, right? Malady, pretty solid. You build it early, you get good clear out of it. You stack it up, you do extra procs when people get low health. What's not to like as an assassin? You're going to see Malady pretty consistently, but pretty much only on assassins. But it is a staple of those assassins, so it's got to be up here. Manta Scythe. I want to reserve the always build category for those items that you absolutely cannot skip. You can skip Manta Scythe, but being that it's in release state, and granted, in about a week, I'm assuming this item does get nerfed. In the release state, Manta Scythe is the best first item for probably 75 to 80% of junglers. Any jungler that benefits from attack speed, Manta Scythe is your go-to. It helps you win 1v1s, it gives you lifesteal, gives you a lot of pin to get through the jungle with, get through jungle objectives with. It's just everything that you really want. Stacking bonus power for taking out camp leaders. This item's going to get nerfed. If it doesn't, I'll be very surprised, because you should be building it first item on just about every jungler right now. Marshall, I think I kind of agree with Manny on this one, that Marshall is a little bit overrated, but at the same time, there's some heroes like Muriel, like Zinx, that especially depending on who their partner carry with, if you build Marshall first item, you can consistently win the 2v2, which is very nice. And without Marshall, there's a lot of 2v2s that you couldn't replace it with a single item and give you the 2v2 potential in duo lane that Marshall does give you. So I'm going to put it in personal preference, but I think it is pretty much always good value. It's just some carries aren't going to benefit from it as much, and definitely a lot of supports aren't going to benefit from it as much. But if you're playing Muriel, Zinx, one of those type of auto attack-ish ranged supports, even Decker, you can build this and get great value. Megacosm, long time been a staple of the mid lane. Tick, max health, damage as a mid laner is great. Comes with mana pool as well. Has a lower power number than it used to because they've been trying to nerf it, and they cannot nerf it into a weak state. I think it's just always going to be valuable, especially in late game scenarios. For pretty much every mid laner, you're going to get decent value. Gives you clear speed boost, gives you jungle objective boost, just everything, right? It's just really solid. Mesmer, not too big a fan of Mesmer. I think there is a lot of situations where it's valuable. Has an interesting stat line, health, pin, but you're not building it on every jungle by any means, and you're not building it if they don't have a bunch of spooky CC. If they get a bunch of spooky CC, then you want Mesmer. Mind Razor, gotta be, it's borderline almost always good value, I think, right? But it's a close one on Mind Razor, man. I think it pretty much is almost always good value, but you could do builds without it. If you're stacking mana, if you're gonna build Resolution, you probably should also build Mind Razor for that mana stacking conversion to physical power. But I don't know if it's just always flat out good value. We'll leave it there for now. Might get adjusted around later. But a solid item. It gives you faster clear on auto attack, AoE. Pretty necessary for some solo laners and some junglers that need mana and have slower clear, like Wukong. Mist Meadow Buckler. It's a damage-adding magical armor item. I think it has better use cases a lot of times than Legacy. And kind of, not necessarily a better stat spread, but really a passive that you're going to get more consistent value out of. I don't know if you're ever building it over Void Helm, but it is really solid. It is really solid. I think if you personally prefer Mist Meadow on your solo lane builds, or even if you're against comps with multiple magical heroes on your jungle builds, I think it's pretty solid. It could definitely slide down. I guess I'm probably never really considering it unless they have like 2 or 3 big magical threats on their team, I guess is the problem, because you're really never considering multiple magic armor items unless that is the case. Mutilator, just about always good value, right? Solid Omnivamp. I think we leave it actually in personal preference because they nerfed it to where it now only applies once per ability hit. And that kind of makes it tough to get the same value out of it that you used to out of heroes like Terra and multi-hit abilities, that you used to be able to hit with. But it's still decent. A lot of Omnivamp. Necrosis, man. One of the new items. This is the ult damage boosting crit item that they added. I think it's just way too comp dependent. You're building, as a carry, you're building 5 crit items. And although most carries ult, the point is to deal damage, you usually aren't fitting this in over some of the more important, more viable crit items, but it does help on some carries. If you're playing a carry whose goal is to deal damage with their ult, Skylar, Murdoch, Kira maybe, some of those type of carries, Twin Blast, you're going to get good value out of it, I think. I think for that reason, we're going to put it in personal preference, because you can get consistently good value out of it. It's got crit items to compete with, but it is solid. Next, man, I don't think I've ever built Nex and regretted it. I don't think anyone who's playing an Assassin Jungler is going to build Nex and regret it. Nex is just incredibly strong, man. Having a little short dash with a slow attached to it that can sometimes hit for huge damage if you stack it up correctly is really valuable. So, like, I think it's pretty much always good value. Granted, like I said, there's new crest options. There's competition at the Rogue's Crest evolution, but I think it's just always good value, right? Nightfall. Been seeing this item more and more. Solid Omnivamp and extra ability healing with a shield on takedowns is quite valuable when comboed with Draconum. Don't know if it outcompetes all of the, or some of the flat pin type assassin items, but even outside of flat pin assassin items, the fact that healing is so much overtuned compared to anti-heal right now means you can consistently get Nightfall value. You can combo it with Mutilator, although they are kind of competing items. You could just build both of them in Draconum and basically be invincible just without any health built. Like, it's just like how it goes, So let me know if you like Nightfall. I've been seeing it used more and more, and I've been getting good value out of it more and more. Noxia, similar to Megacosm, being that it is a max health proccing mage item, pretty solid. Kind of personal preference. It does come with 20 haste. I think it comes with 20 haste, right? Let's see if we can confirm that. Yeah, 20 haste. It does come with 20 haste, which is nice. There's only a select few mage items that come with 20 haste. So if it's a personal preference item for you, if they have multiple tanks, it's good value. Does it beat out some of these ones I have in this tier? I don't really have too many mage items in this tier yet. Lifebinder, yeah. Does it match with some of these in this tier? Golems. Astral, yeah. I think it's kind of on that same level. Nuke rounds, pretty niche. Very few carries are really going to have a slot for nuke rounds. You can make it work, especially if it's going to be your only attack speed item on a carry that's looking to do a lot of ability damage. It can be pretty valuable. Twin Blast and the likes. Even Kira can definitely benefit from it, but it has just such a weird stat spread, giving no power and all this attack speed, that I think if it gave like 20% attack speed, if it had like the same stat line as like Dust Devil or Lightning Hawk and gave a mix of power and attack speed, it would be such a better item. But just a niche item, decent, buildable on some heat carries, like I said, Kira, Twin Blast, who want to do big ability damage. Near War Boots, I think the competition for the Titan's Crest evolutions near War Boots really falls on the short end of the stick. Kind of similar to Earth Spirit, is you're not going to build it all the time. It's interesting, gives movement speed and healing and stuff, but it's just not a ton. I think the other crest options definitely outcompete it. Oathkeeper, a solid stat line, but kind of niche. If you don't need health and you're not stacking multiple Spellblade procs on a magical damage dealer, like Shimby, for example, or Quang, or whatever it may be, I probably wouldn't go for Oathkeeper. Magnify for a long time, it was just kind of a better Oathkeeper, and I still feel like it kind of does fulfill the Oathkeeper role better, but why not build both if you're going to benefit from it on like a World Breaker build, right? Obelisk, if you want to play the stacking minigame of hitting Obelisk and killing a minion, be my guest, you will stack up an extra 20, 30, 40, whatever it may be, magical power from building it, but I don't think it's worth it, man, unless you just like playing that minigame. I just don't think it's really that worth it. But but can give you some burst damage and extra magic power at the end of the game. Ob Crown. I'm not going to put it in always build. I'm not going to put it in always build. I'm kidding, I am. Actually, I'm kidding, I'm not. I have never been the biggest Ob Crown supporter. I get it, if you are playing a mid lane and you want to deal as much damage, most of the time you should be building Ob Crown. But if I had to tell you to pick between Magnify and Ob Crown, I would pick Magnify most of the time to deal damage to the tankier targets. Ob Crown, of course, gives you extra damage to lower health targets if they don't have as much armor, just because it gives you so much power. This is a huge amount of power added item, but I don't think you can just always build it blindly. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken on this. It is very strong. We'll see at the end. I might sneak it up into always build. Omen. It's a very niche item. If you're building an assassin and you want to have as fast of ability resetting as possible, you can build Omen. It has an interesting ability resetting mechanic that you don't see many people take too much advantage of. There's just solid flat pin items that it makes it tough for some of these other ones. There's so many, Dread, Envy, Omen. Envy might actually move up. That's a pretty solid item. But these type of items, they have a lot to compete with in that category, so it takes a kind of niche comp to fit it in there. Anoxian, we got to slide up into personal preference. There are melee heroes that this is going to benefit heavily. Like I said, if you're building it, if you want to build it in conjunction with your Cursed Scroll and your Aegis of Aguilar and your Overlord type build, it is huge value. But there are some carries where you wouldn't mind having it as well. I wouldn't necessarily recommend building it on Eden, although in melee stance it is valuable. In range stance, it gives so much of a worse stat line than Terminus that I wouldn't really recommend it. But a solid item, like I said, viable and usable for multiple heroes. Really, ma'am? Okay. Okay, Miss Goonie wants to come say hello. Come here. Look at Miss Goonie. Look at Miss Goonie. What are we doing? Why are we interrupting? Say hello to the people. Hello. Hello. Alright, go behave. Miss Goonie just having to get in. She can't let a video go through without getting her face in it. Orb of Growth evolves into Orb of Enlightenment. Very solid item. Personal preference. You could build this on pretty much any mid, as long as you're willing to take it slow in the early game and get good value out of it. Pretty much the most power, really the most raw stats that you can build on any magical power item, with the health, with the mana that it gives you bonus XP as you stack it, gives you bonus heals based off of missing health as you cast abilities, so really solid item overall. I've been a big fan of Orb of Growth for a long time. Orion, I think it is always good value, but only on the Prophecy builds. I think if you're not on a Prophecy build, you're not going to be able to get that much out of it. If you are on the Prophecy build, you can pretty much turn any magical power mage or even ranged support into a threat on the auto attack side of things just with Prophecy and Orion, because giving you extra attack speed based off of ability haste isn't an item that I really was expecting. I know most of these new items, they kind of just copy other MOBAs items and how they have them laid out. But converting ability haste into attack speed is quite interesting, quite niche. It's facilitated a lot of really overpowered broken builds with Cursed Ring and Prophecy right now. Ortis, a really solid Rogue Crest upgrade, stacks into the late game, percent bonus power, is very valuable. You can build it on a lot of carries, more carries than I think people understand, and get good value out of it. You can build it, of course, on a lot of junglers and get good value out of it. Don't think it quite competes with Nex for the majority of situations, at least in jungle, but you would be shocked. There's a lot of carries that you can get great Ortis value out of. Used to build it pretty much every game, still do build it pretty much every game, on Zarus for that matter. And just it gives you good stats. Percent bonus damage, or percent bonus power means more damage, and extra movement speed is quite nice. Overlord. I don't think it's quite on the Manta Scythe level. I think once Manta Scythe gets its due nerfs, it'll be here in the always good value build, which is where Overlord is going to go. Build it first item, stack up a big health pool, do extra damage, combo with Eggs of Aguilar for a huge power number. The mix of survivability and damage is always a win in my books. Many solo laners and junglers benefit from having this as their first item. If it's high enough priority to be the first item, it should be recognized that it's clearly always a good value. Overseer, bonus ult damage and lifesteal at mid lane. What's not to like? I like it better most of the time than Lifebinder. I think it's not quite on Magnify's level of consistent usability, but it is very good. Flat pin as well, one of the few flat pin items at mid lane that you haven't access to. Most mid laners will benefit from building it. Whether or not you have room for it or not is another question. Pacifier. Now this is the jump. This is the little short jump crest that you have access to. I think a lot of the times it is going to be better than Liberator, probably because you can... One, because you can use that mobility to avoid stuff. Two, you can use that mobility to chase down kills. And three, it resets on takedowns, meaning you can use it multiple times. Very solid in those cases. I don't think it's quite as usable as Exodus or quite as consistently strong or overtuned as Exodus, but it is very solid. Most of the time better than Eviscerator, but I don't think either of them break into that just permanent good value build. Always kind of tier. Painweaver. I think pretty much every assassin jungle would agree that Painweaver is a must build. The way that this stacks up stats, the amount of raw stats that it gives is really strong. Movement speed boost as an assassin is very valuable. I think there's probably not a better move speed boosting assassin item that you can really get other than Painweaver. And for that reason, it's got to be in the always good value tier. For the people that you're considering it on, it's probably one of your 6 items every game, right? Penumbrum. Not really recommend Penumbrum most of the time. It's okay. You'll see some people build it as jungle, but it kind of suffers from the same thing these other ones suffer from. Like the Omen and the Dread and the Demon Edge, which I actually ended up putting down here. There's just so much competition for that flat pin type assassin role that I don't know if Penumbrum really can break into what those other ones give you. Solid stats though. I mean, it's the same thing as these other ones, right? Same thing as Omen. Maybe you could build it with Omen and get some interesting synergy going, but it's not really that great. Plasma Blade. Not always good value, but it's a solid personal preference item on basically any carry that's going to benefit from magical power scaling, aka Grim, Twin Blast, even Drongo potentially, and especially Skylar. Plasma Blade is a really solid item to get in one of your first 2 items. Gives you bonus crit, means you only have to build 4 crit items instead of 5, so you have extra slots opened up in your build, and a solid stat line overall. So very, very essential, I would say, on those type of Skylar, Grim, Twin Blast, even Drongo potentially heroes. It's hard to beat for the early game damage. Prophecy probably deserves to be in the always good value tier, but I'm going to put it in the personal preference tier because you kind of have the option, right? If you want to build, let's say I want to force some attack speed into my Gideon build, I grab my Prophecy and Orion, and now I have a Gideon build that also does decent attack speed damage. Or if I want to completely sell out, I play Zinx mid lane and build my Prophecy, Orion, Cursed Ring, and just stack up crazy damage with all that rapid attack speed. Build, Time Warp or whatever for a bunch of haste for Orion benefits, and then Typhoon and stuff. And you can do that route, but it's personal preference. If you don't want to shoehorn that into your builds, same thing with Shimby. If you don't want to force Shimby into an auto attack build, you can just build Power Shimby or Big Health Shimby and be fine. But if you do want to do some auto attack damage, it's required to build Prophecy, but maybe not always good value, right? Kind of hard to build by itself and get great value. Pygmy Dust, decent as a crest item. Sometimes hard to really get that good of value out of, though. Maybe it's highly comps as hero dependent, because I have seen a couple scenarios where you can get decent value out of it, but you got to time it well. I think it's best used on throwing it on an assassin or an enemy hero that's diving you, rather than trying to use it on your teammate for the most part. Remnant of Renewal, you're not really seeing people build it that much. I think it does have the potential to give you good value, but coming with health and no armor does come with great sustain. Healing you when you're out of combat means you can just kind of sit around in lane if you need to. But I don't think it's many people's personal preference. Really, look at this. Miss Goonie just cannot... You just gotta be a part of the video, huh? Alright, say hello to the people one more time. Hello! She just cannot help herself, man. I don't think it's many people's personal preference. If Remnant of Renewal is your personal preference, let me know in the comments. Rapture, I think, is realistically always good value. I think for me, Rapture is my favorite of the, in most scenarios, is my favorite of the Earthshaker Augmentation Rapture trio. I think Rapture is the most important. I think you can fit it into more builds than people understand because it's Omnivamp, not Lifesteal. So you're not relying on auto attacks. You will heal from your abilities when building this. It doesn't come with actual power or haste, but it does come with health and attack speed. So quite solid. I think just the state of healing makes Omnivamp incredibly valuable, and Rapture can fit on a lot of builds. Anyone that's building big health and auto attacking, Rapture is going to benefit you on. In combination with Aegis of Aguilar and Overlord, you can pretty much make any melee health build viable on just about any hero. So Razorback, don't know if it really competes most games with its competition. Like Mantle is really solid, you know. We've got War Boots and Earth Spirit down here. I think we put Razorback in personal preference. I completely understand if you do prefer Razorback, because it is very fun on like Rampage builds and stuff. Like I said, with the Flux Matrix builds comboing with Overlord or with like Fire Blossom Tainted Rounds and or Tainted Guard and all that stuff, it is very valuable to have Razorback as an additional proc in there for sure. Rebirth, a complete troll item, man. Rebirthing, reviving yourself with the little droney and then trying to like get into a position where they don't kill you as the drone. Yes, it can be interesting. It can be funny if you're like a 6,000 health Sevrog and they finally wear you down, and then you just go into Rebirth and then revive as a 2,000 health or a 3,000 health Sevrog. It's super annoying, but it's just not good. You're very rarely going to ever get value out of this, man. Reclamation. This is the... Is this the cleanse one? Or is it the silence one? All the three of them have like such a similar symbol that I can't remember the names from each other. This is the cleanse one. Yes, okay. So this is the AoE teammate cleanse crest. Very valuable in support if you're playing against, like I said, the Auroras, the Richters, the predictable CCs that you want to cleanse as your team. I think if you're not playing against those, though, it's pretty much not going to be worth taking over the silence, over the heal. So I would just only take it in those scenarios. It is highly hero or comp dependent in that way. Resolution, I think I can't put Azure... I guess I could put Azure Core up here and not put Resolution up here, because there is different competition at those roles. But Resolution, similar in the same way that Azure Core functions, is on its own the highest power item you can build by itself. When it's fully stacked, it gives you more auto attack damage without critting as any other item in the game, if not the most. Maybe Sky Splitter against tanks would be better, right? But it's right there with it. Gives pin as well. Gives a big mana pool. You can combo it with Mind Razor to get that huge power bonus out of it. But I think it's always good value. I think you could build it on more carries than people build it on. But of course, it means it has to be your only non-crit item if you're going to do that, because you got to get 5 crit items in to have 100% crit. So it is what it is. I think it's always good value, though. I think Soul Chalice is so cheap and easy to stack that it's worth building it first item most games. Riftwalkers, really solid, man. The Riftwalkers plays that you can pull off are just so game-changing or fight-changing a lot of the times that it's kind of worth going for them on your steel, on your decker, trying to hit a big multi-stun with the Riftwalkers. I would really recommend most of the time, like at least trying it, right? Taking a look next at Ruination, this is the crit mana drain item, which, yes, that is a weird combination of stats, I'm with you on that, but gives crit, gives power, does not give attack speed, and gives mana drain. There's just very rarely a scenario that you really want to use this in. Kind of suffers from the same thing as some of these other crit items like Equinox, Dust Devil, that you don't really want to fit into your build. I'm going to actually say rarely good value instead of just too hero or comp dependent, because even in the situation where you want to drain the mana from the enemy duo lane, it's probably not worth it most of the time. I haven't built it on Eden yet. Maybe it's more viable on like Eden Skylar. But as far as no attack speed crit items go, you just have such better options that you're probably never really considering Ruination, right? If you've got great Ruination value, and I don't mean you guys who are playing it, who are building it on Morgesh solo lane, I mean if you're getting any legitimate good Ruination value, let me know in the comments. Salvation, decent, right? On those health bruiser builds, very decent. I think it belongs in the personal preference tier because you can really get good value out of it on those health bruisers like Chimera and stuff who want to be healing even more, get an extra shield proc in the middle of the fight, combo it with your Draconum and whatnot on your Aegis of Aguilar Overlord builds. Very solid value for sure. Salvation. This is what I was talking about kind of in comparison to what crest are you going to build off of this side of the support crest options. I think, I mean, it versus Leaf Song, right, are usually, I think, your better options. I don't know. I think even Riftwalkers is maybe better than this. I think yeah, it's kind of go in the hero or comp dependent category, because I would take Riftwalkers and Leaf Song over it the majority of the time, but there are some cases where I like Sanctification, like on Narbash, when I'm building True Silver and trying to ult. Having that extra shield on Sanct is nice, or if your carry is a carry that likes to dive, you can build Sanct and keep him alive a little bit longer. Sapphire's Mantle, very solid. I think very much in competition every game with Razorback on what Titan's Crest you want to evolve out of. Giving you extra mitigation, giving you a nice little heal. It's effectively a heal. It's a bonus max health, but on a lot of heroes, your max health pool is so big, especially towards the end of the game. This is kind of equivalent to like a 400 or 500 health heal in some of those cases, which is very valuable to have that on demand. Makes you a little bigger, gives you permanent stacking health as well. Scattershot. It's not an always build, but I think it is an always good value because it has essentially become the best clear speed addition carry item in the game. Crit, attack speed, faster clear. Very, very necessary on heroes like Eden and Kira who have slow clear at the carry role. Scattershot is your best option for that. Can also help you clear jungle camps very quickly too, if you want to build that on a jungler that has slow or poor clear and benefits from the crit. Silentum, kind of hero or comp dependent. If you don't have a target in mind that you want to be using this silence on, I probably wouldn't go for it. You could definitely, there is a lot of good cases where you like this though, silencing a Sparrow out of her ult, silencing a Richter as he's trying to run at you, silencing an Eden maybe that's trying to dive you. All of those are good use case scenarios here, and many more. Silence is always valuable, right? Building it in a double silence, you know, if you have this as Rick and you're going to have a double silence for people, that's very fun too to piss them off. But it's just kind of comp dependent like that. I think a lot of the times you would like probably the cleanse just as much. And the heal is kind of sneakily good too, so it's got competition. Sky Splitter, I can't put it quite into the always build category, although you are frequently always building it. I think there's, at carry role, if you're going to build it, it has to be your one item outside of your 5 crit items. that you're building that's not crit, or at the jungle roll, you've got to get it. You're going to get it a lot of time at the jungle roll, right? Any auto attacker. But it's just always good value. Many people would consider it the best item in the game just because it's so universally helpful. I think it kind of breaks into that always build tier, right? I think they just can't get it balanced into a good state. When I look at even the stuff in the always good value tier, you just know that Sky Splitter is a step above it. You're going to see 2 or 3 Sky Splitters in every single game, right? So it's got to be up there. Solaris, very good at what it does, I will say. I think it's probably too hero or comp dependent to compete with some of the other crit options that you have, but on those nuke rounds, Psionic Echo, carry builds where you're going to be doing a lot of ability damage or using abilities frequently, we're looking at you, Twin Blast. Solaris is a staple, right? So you definitely build them on those, but other than that, it's a little too comp dependent, it's a little too hero dependent that you're playing. Solstice, surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. I looked at this item originally, didn't think it looked that good, built it in a couple games, and it's actually quite good. Very significant healing gained from this. Anyone that's auto-attacking, even if you're not consistently auto-attacking, Solstice is pretty valuable healing for most solo laners with a good stat line of additional armors. So, what is the? I do want to see the scaling on this healing, because I don't know if this. I don't know if this actually gets scaling on the healing. Increased by 10 to 60. So it's physical power scaling. 2.25 at max stack. So it does have scaling on the heal based off of physical power, which is interesting. Just a solid item. I think you could build it on a lot of solo laners and get good value out of it. Soul Bearer. A lot of times I am taking Soul Bearer over the Stasis, it seems like. I feel like I can use the move speed, use the extra healing to kind of power through a fight better than if I tried to hit my Stasis and just wait out the fight or wait for something to work out or try to reposition a teammate to me. So Soul Bearer has to at least be on par with the Epoch for that purpose. I'm usually taking it over it. Soulbinder, a 20 haste mana item, gives you stacking power into the late game. It's just very comp dependent. If you're not playing a mage that can proc long range abilities like your Howitzer, like your Gadget, it's just you have a hard time stacking it, and it's really not worth it. Gideon with the Infinite Range Rock can of course stack it quite well, but outside of those 3, there's not too many that you're ever really considering Soulbinder on, I would say. Spear of Deso, if you want extra damage and extra ability, or extra ultimate specific haste, if you want extra damage when you're hitting your ult, Spear of Deso is solid for that. Suffers from the same thing that a lot of these other flat pin items suffer from, which is that there's too many to go around and only 6 item slots to build, but solid on heroes that want to ult into fights, assassins that want to ult into fights. If you want to build maybe Assassin Zarus, you could get good value out of it and stuff like that. Kalari, obviously. It's pretty decent on those. Spectra, part of what makes on-hit viable right now. I think really solid, of course, in combination with like the Cursed Ring, Orion, Prophecy build on like Zincs and stuff like that. Super valuable there. But unless you're dedicating to full on-hit, I don't know if Spectra is really that valuable. You kind of have to go all out on-hit and build Spectra first or second most of the time to get that value out of it. But in those cases, it does feel good. I'm a fan of Spectra. I would say Spectra is a decent item. Spectral Schematics, a new item on the block, gives bonus max health damage when you hit enemies with hard CC. Decent stat line, 20 haste on it as well. It's pretty valuable. I think it's got to be hero or comp dependent though, just because if you're not a mage that's proccing hard CC, which there aren't that many mages that have good hard CC or good reliable hard CC, then you don't need it. You don't benefit from it at all. But if you are, you know, your Arguses, your Gadget trying to consistently root people, your, you know, Fae ult, I would take this over Overseer probably on Fae, just for the extra little ult damage, because you don't really care about the Overseer damage on Fae. I don't know. Is there? Let me know who you've been building spectral schematics on. Pretty solid item though. I kind of like the stat spread. I like the idea of it. It is big late game damage. Spellbreaker. Damage added and armor item. Gotta be in the personal preference tier for me because there are a lot of solo laners, similar to Golem's Gift, where you could build Spellbreaker early and get good value. The Spell Shield is consistently valuable to help you stay safe in mid lane if you're getting targeted by the enemy jungler frequently. Spellbreaker can save you in some of those situations if you can avoid poke from the other mid laner and have your Spell Shield up for when you need it. So, a solid item. Solid for some magical solo laners too. Spirit of Amir, it is decent. It does give you nice jungle clear. It does give you a decent stat spread. It does give you flat pin, bonus power. It's got a nice adaptability to it that I really like. So I think we're going to put it in personal preference. If you're a fan of Spirit of Amir, let me know in the comments. I like Spirit of Amir on some magical junglers for sure, but even on like gadget mid lane, you can get good value out of Spirit of Amir late game because the stat spread is so nice and because of the percent bonus power. Stonewall. Probably got to go in personal preference just because it's such a good tank item. Any true tank, if you're against a 4 or even potentially 5 physical comp, which you shouldn't be, but if you're against a 4 physical comp, Stonewall is going to give you insane amounts of mitigation, really like unmatched and really unconditional. Just build it with at least one other maybe physical armor item or at least Aegis of Aguilar and Cat Drive, and you can just have so much mitigation that it's the one of, if not the best lone physical armor items that you can get most games. Of course, you're usually comboing it with more because it's kind of a full tank item, right? Stormbreaker, I think Stormbreaker used to be in that spot where Scattershot is, where it was the clear-cut best clear adding item, clear speed boosting item for a carry to get. But now Scattershot just does that job so much better and comes with crit. Stormbreaker, as a carry, you would have to sacrifice your one and only non-crit item slot to build it. Could you still do that and get good value? Yes, of course. Would I recommend it? Definitely not over Scattershot, right? Psionic Echo. I'm a big fan of Psionic Echo. I've always been a big Psionic Echo supporter. Very fun on the heroes who you already know you're going to be hitting an ability and then autoing. Hit an ability and then autoing. Those type of heroes very strong on. I'm looking at Yuri, I'm looking at Twin Blast, whose passives essentially function like Psionic Echo. You add Psionic Echo onto that and it gets even better. Melee, junglers, and solo laners that want true auto attack canceling. Zarus, who else? Zarus, Boris, sometimes people build this on. Crunch, you could build this on. You just get good value out of Psionic Echo consistently. Lifesteal is so overtuned compared to anti-heal that you're always going to get good value out of it, right? Not quite, I don't think, in the always good value tier because the stat line is only for damage dealers, you know? So not quite into that always good. But on those heroes that benefit from it, you still don't see people build it enough. Now we're into the Tainted items. Tainted Bastion really is not frequently the Tainted item that you're picking up unless they are very magical damage heavy, because you have to take magical damage from an enemy to proc the Tainted Bastion on them, which not every hero can proc. So kind of comp dependent on that one. Tainted Blade, very solid. I think I'm going to put it in the always good value tier because it is percent damage added to enemies. If you put the Tainted proc on them and then damage them, it is percent taken bonus damage across the board, which is really strong at pretty much any role. As long as you can benefit from the physical power and the health pool, you're going to be building it pretty much every game. If you're going like a jungler with Aegis of Aguilar type Overlord build, Tainted Blade is probably going to be slotted in there for you. It's just a good stat spread, 15 haste as well, hard to turn down. Tainted Charm, I think, is kind of in a similar boat to Tainted Bastion where, who am I kidding? Why am I... Just in the hopes that Tainted one day is good and you're from the future watching this when Tainted is good and anti-heal is good, I'm going to move these up because you pretty much have to build Tainted every game. It just comes down to a personal preference of which Tainted item you want to build. Tainted Charm, not frequently your best pick for a Tainted item either, but mana hungry supports can build it, tank supports can build it. You could build it on some solo laners. It's just very rare that you're going to want mana that bad and need a slowdown. Pretty good on like Narbash and stuff. People who are going to be in their face fighting consistently, it's good. It's decent on. I don't think it's the best Tainted option though. Tainted Guard, always good value, right? Kind of similar to Fire Blossom in that it's a damage added armor item, but one of the better ones because it also procs anti-heal. Building the tier 2 on it is very valuable a lot of times in solo lane for early anti-heal. Just a solid item for sure. Combos well, has good scaling based off of other physical armor items, hard to turn down. Tainted Rounds, borderline always build, right? I'll put it in always good value because I don't think it's an always build because you're not picking it up on like most junglers or anything like that. But at carry, you're pretty much getting this almost every game as one of your 5 crit items. Gives attack speed, power, a decent passive proc, and most importantly, anti-heal. Watch them full heal right through it anyway, but at least you can feel like you have anti-heal built and not get called out for it. Tainted Scepter, very solid. You have to deal magical damage to proc it, and the passive on it is just not that strong. It's not nearly as good as Tainted Blade's passive, and it only gives 10 haste, whereas Tainted Blade gives 15. So if you're in a situation where you need it in solo lane or mid, build it, but doesn't quite compete with Tainted Blade in most scenarios, just because the passive isn't quite as good. Tainted Totem, really good, man. For healers, Tainted Totem, really solid. You're only, other than Tainted Charm, your only mana sustain option for an anti-heal item. Spreads anti-heal around to anyone that you heal. Also now can apply anti-heal, which is very solid. And a decent stat line, and it's cheap as a support item, so it's just always good value to have. I build it first item a lot of times on healer supports. And then finally for the Tainted items, Tainted Trident. If you're stacking multiple flat pin items, the Tainted Trident value is real, man. But who cares? It's an anti-heal item. In the hopes that one day in the future you're seeing this and anti-heal is good, we're going to say it's always good value. If you're building an assassin, you would hope that you can assassinate someone fast enough to where their healing isn't a problem, but in the current meta, that's not the case. You can try to jump on a Bale and assassinate him, and he'll just full heal right back up because healing is so much more overtuned than anti-heal. So we're going to say it is always good value because I do like it. I do like it. Don't build it a lot because I don't play a lot of assassins where I'm stacking flat pin, but if you are, it's very good value. Tempest, before I think most people would say this is kind of the best Occult Crest upgrade. Now it's really going to be up to personal preference. If you want this AoE damage off of the Occult Crest and a little bit of heal, go for it. But I do think you now have a really strong alternative option to Tempest. Still very decent on a lot of particularly magical solo laners, right? Quang, Countess, Shinbi, the likes. But like I said, it's got some competition now that's probably a little bit better. Terminus. Solid, man. I think it's pretty much always good value. There's a lot of carries that really benefit from this. Of course, you are sacrificing attack speed to build this as one of your 5 crit items. So we're going to put it in personal preference because usually the build pans out to where you're getting Terminus as one of your 5 crit items, and then your 6th item slot is available for something like Resolution or, whatever other one you prefer. Or you're not getting Terminus as one of your 5 crit items, and then you're getting like Sky Splitter as your 6th item to make up for the lifesteal difference. So it is really solid. I think it competes with some of the other crit items we have in this tier already, like Necrosis, where you want it a lot of games, but maybe not on every hero every game, right? Perforator, you already know where this one's going. Build percent pin. If your goal is to deal damage, whatever other items you want to build them, but most importantly, build percent pin. It has a slow effect too, which is decent. Doesn't benefit every hero, but it does benefit a lot of those assassin junglers that would like to build Perforator. Time Flux Band is borderline rarely good value. I guess I'll put it in highly hero or comp dependent just because there are some really interesting plays you can make with Time Flux Band, but you're not really going to see that many people making those plays if we're being honest. but when you do make them, it feels really cool. So Time Flux Band, if you want to rewind yourself, it's decent. It's decent. It's definitely usable. Time Warp, since the buff to giving it extra haste, I think it's really solid. I don't know if always good value. I would have put it in always good value if they didn't nerf the mana sustain. Before, it was that you could build Time Warp and not worry about your mana all game. Now, since they nerfed the mana sustain that you get from it, you've pretty much got to build in Time Warp and Caustica if you just want to not worry about mana and have plenty of mana sustain, which I don't like. If it still had its mana sustain, I would put it in always good value. It is your best haste item in the game for resetting cooldowns. If you want to reset cooldowns as fast as possible, you got to build Time Warp as a mage, right? Pretty fun as a first item on Akron to give that a try if you haven't before. Tranquility. We already talked about the silence and we already talked about the cleanse. This is the heal. It's actually pretty decent. I think I've seen more people running the heal recently than I have in the past. But it's just so comp dependent. It's hard to just say that it's a clear-cut one above the other ones, because sometimes you want the silence, sometimes you want the cleanse, and sometimes you want the heal. I think it's a good mix of which one do you want to take, right? So if you want the heal, if you're playing someone like Muriel, if you're playing someone like Zinx maybe who wants extra healing, if you're playing a Fae support, something like that, you want extra healing, Tranquility is the way to go. Transference, this is actually a really solid item. On any hero that applies shields to themselves, Transference allows you to heal off of those shields at a percentage, or if you have a Muriel or something on your team that is frequently applying shields, you get to heal off of them. Very solid on heroes like Shinbi and Quang, or like I said, any hero if you're playing with a Muriel. Just a good item, man. Just a surprisingly good item, a good stat line too. Give it a try if you haven't yet. I've had a lot of fun with it. True Silver. I'm not going to say always good value, but maybe actually just highly hero comp dependent, because you can't, they did buff it to where it gives heal boosting now, but you're still only building it on heroes where you don't want to get CC'd out of your ult, particularly like Narbash or Akron, where you can't risk getting CC'd out of your ult. You got to build that True Silver. Outside of those scenarios, you're not considering it, and even in those scenarios, if I'm for some reason playing against a comp where they only have 1 or 2 hard CCs, I'm probably leaving it out on Narbash as well, so just very hero or comp dependent. Typhoon. Is it borderline always good value? I think we're going to put it in the personal preference, because if you're not comboing it with the Prophecy Orion build to focus on a magical auto attacker, it's not going to be worth it. You don't just build Typhoon on your standard Fae mid lane build and it becomes good. I think you're in just as good a spot with Typhoon, or actually probably a worse spot with Typhoon than you would be with like Soulbearer or Stasis on most mids if you're just throwing it in randomly. If you're comboing it with your Orion, with your Cursed Ring, with your Prophecy, it is very strong, and is what makes those builds strong. It's just simply not always good value, right? I think I kind of have to put it in the always good value category, because it's kind of what facilitates any of those magical auto-attacking builds being viable. Without it, you couldn't, even just with the Orion Prophecy combo, you couldn't get away with it. You need Typhoon to make those builds viable, so I'm going to put it in always good value just to separate it as a key element of those builds. Tyranny. Pretty fun. I actually like playing around with Tyranny. On heroes like, you could troll with it like I have on Morn before, but on heroes like Zarus, where you want to ult in and then be running around and have extra movement speed, extra haste. On heroes like Greystone, where you're going to ult in the middle of the fight and then keep fighting, Rampage, stuff like that. Tyranny is very fun. I don't know if it's really better than some of these that are in the... I think it has to go in the hero or comp dependent tier, just because you don't want it on every hero. Even every hero that's building health and power, like its stat line gives, you don't want it on all of them, right? Unbroken Will, very solid, man. If they have heavy CC, almost every game will be better than Absolution for you. For what it gives, especially tanks, of course, it's much better than Absolution on. I mean, if they don't have CC, maybe you're not building it right, but if they've got multiple forms of CC, this is a must-have item. Doesn't add damage like something like Flux Matrix does, but gives you pretty unmatched survivability. Vainglory. I have a hard time not seeing this as always good value. Of course, this is only on tanks. We're talking about only on tanks that you would ever consider this, but it's percent bonus armors, man. It's percent bonus armors. If you're building 2 magical armor items, 2 physical armor items, and you throw this on here, you're getting to really unkillable territory. You can also stack this just with on your big healing build with like Draconum Void Helm and a couple heal items, and it's gonna give you really solid survivability. So if you think Vainglory is worse than I'm rating it here, let me know in the comments, but I feel like every time I've built it, it's made me significantly tankier, so I like it. Let me know what you think about it. Vanguardian, on the other hand, maybe not that great. If you are playing a support who wants to stay in the middle of the fight and are going to be able to apply this to your whole team, it is pretty solid on those Narbashes and those Steels and stuff like that who are running at them. It is pretty good armor value, but it doesn't come with health. It doesn't come with mana sustain or any of some of those other stats that you would really like. How much does it get? They changed it, didn't they? It was a while ago, right, that they... Gives 20 tenacity, 10 haste, yeah, and then 15 and 12. So they changed it a while ago. It used to give a little bit more, but it's just not really that great, right? I think you're better with Frost Guard. The majority of the time, you're better building Frost Guard, probably. Vank. Unfortunately, it's an always build. I'm kind of on the side of Lime with this one. I wish that there was like more options. I wish I had the option to build a more diverse carry build, but I feel like if you don't build Vank, you just won't get the kills. Too many people will escape low, and those kills will cost you in the late game when you haven't scaled up as well as you should have because you missed a couple last hit kills that you should have got. So you're almost always going to see this built on one or both teams at the carry slot, sometimes even in some other roles as well. Viper, really solid. I think if you're not building Demo or Perforator, you need to build Viper. They buffed Viper and Basilisk in this last patch. These percent armor shred items are very strong. Viper comes with a little bit of extra flat pin and attack speed as well, and Viper facilitates the on-hit builds being viable with its bonus on-hit damage. So it's always build. Either you're building Demo or you're building Viper. There's no way around it. If you're not building one of those 2 items, or maybe Perforator, I guess, at carry, you are costing your team damage. That is the bottom line. Void Conduit. Solid. I long time liked it as my favorite magical armor item at support. I don't know if I really want to put it down here in hero or comp dependent, but I do think that Devotion has really taken that spot. I think if you are playing a support healer that's not... If you're playing a support that's not a healer, Void Conduit and Gaussian Greaves are kind of something that you're looking at. Maybe not even God. I still like Void Conduit, but it is very comp dependent because Devotion has stepped into such a good spot. I think Devotion is the clear-cut one that's better most of the time. Speaking of clear-cut better, Void Helm. When are you not considering Void Helm as your magic armor item? Pop quiz. When are you not considering Void Helm as your lone magic armor item on damage dealers or solo laners? The answer is never. This is always a good item because, as we've said before, healing is overtuned relative to anti-heal. Build Void Helm. Don't care about anybody else's tainted items. Build your Void Helm. Build your Draconum on top of it, and 1 or 2 lifesteal items. Build that in addition to the healing that you have built into your kit, because every hero's got to have healing in their kit now, right? And you will be essentially unkillable off of 1 magic armor item and 1 physical armor item. You will be tankier than full tanks because you're just healing so dang much. So it's always a good value, man. It comes with haste too. It comes with a big health pool. There's really no downside to Void Helm almost ever. As a lone magical armor item, it is the go-to, right, for pretty much every solo laner and even jungler that wants to fit a single magic armor item in. Void Gazer. This is an interesting one. It is a bonus damage proc after you hit someone with it. This evolves off of the Mage Crest. It's pretty decent, I will say, in a lot of scenarios where you would like to have a bonus damage proc like this, and you want to start with the extra mana sustain of Mage Crest, potentially in solo lane, like as solo lane Acheron, solo lane Shinbi. I do like this, but I don't think it really competes a lot of the time with your option. Like with Soul Bearer, I think it is very close to Soul Bearer. It's just a little bit harder to use. So I think it being in the same tier, I guess, with the Stasis and the Soul Bearer is probably fair, but you have to get used to it to get the good value out of it. Volcania, really solid, actually. I think more people should be building this than they are. I don't think if people just haven't gotten used to it yet or seen it enough. Very solid on heroes that like to reset their abilities quickly, build it on your Seraph and whatnot. Very strong. Vizier Caprice, or Carapace. Vizier Carapace, I guess is how you pronounce that. It's a solid item, but it's a little too niche. There's only a few heroes you would maybe want it on, like Terra and the likes, but if you do build it on a couple of those tanky or solo laners, and then you build Transference on top of it, where did I put Transference? Right here. If you build it and build Transference with it, you can get really good value. I don't know if Transference should really be up here in that case, because you are reliant on getting shields to make this work, but on those heroes that have self-shielding, it's too good. I have to put it in personal preference. But if you build Viziers with it, and you can get really good value for sure on those type of heroes. Warden's Faith. I think I need to put it a step above Stonewall as the anti-physical damage item, right? It's just too good. It comes with anti-crit and enemy power reduction on a massive health and physical armor item. It is the clear-cut best physical armor item you can build. I mean, if they have 2 people building crit on their team, build Warden's Faith. If they have 3 people building crit on their team, start telling your mid laner and your carry to build Warden's Faith, because the amount of damage that this keeps off of you is so substantial, man. You have to build it anytime you're against multiple crits, right? As a tank jungler, as a tank support, as a tank solo lane, anything, Warden's Faith. If you're going to get a single physical armor item, it's got to be Warden's Faith. Warp Stream, I just don't. Maybe at the top level, people are getting better value out of this, but I'm never seeing it built. Not limiting your blink to only be an engage is just not cool. It's not worth hampering your blink like that. Sometimes you need to blink out. Sometimes you need to blink over a wall. In a clutch scenario, you can't do it if you've taken damage. Let me know. I get that maybe there's some comp dependent stuff. You could, I build it on Narbash and blink on people and ult them all the time. That's sick. But I don't see it, man. Let me know in the comments. Is this more valuable than I think it is? Because I just never see people build it. Windcaller, I think, is borderline in that territory with Crystal Tier as far as the heal boosting items, but maybe not quite there, right? The movement speed boost that you get from it is so slight that it's not noticeable the majority of the time, unless you're comboing it with extra movement speed boost, similar to how Dust Devil is formatted. Where's Dust Devil? Dust Devil. Similar to how Dust Devil, if you're using it as your only movement speed boost, it's not that significant. If you're using it as a combo movement speed boost with like Muriel boost, Narbash boost, and stuff like that, it's very good, but otherwise, not too noticeable. Winter's Fury. Man, I think this is just the clear best Occult Crest upgrade. I think this surpasses Tempest almost every time with how valuable it is. It hits a big area. It is a solid slow. If you haven't seen this, you've definitely seen this in game if you've been playing, because a lot of solo laners, pretty much every magical solo laner in jungle, are building into this. Very valuable in team fights. Highly recommend it. For the slow, Witch Stalker. This is your cleanse option off of the Rogue's Crest. I think it's probably too niche the majority of the time to really be favorable, kind of like Brutalix, where I'm not ever considering it unless I'm playing against a big threat, very cleansable, predictable CC like a Fae ult, Aurora ult, that I need to cleanse in order to potentially survive. In those cases, of course, Witch Stalker is decent, like Brutalix, but otherwise you have better crest options. World Breaker, very solid option, man. Giving you magical power conversion from your health pool is really nice, but even more important than that, the back-end percent damage can often outweigh the damage added from a lot of other item passives because it is back-end percent bonus damage that stacks up to a very solid amount. Tempted to put it in always good value because it does come with a good stat line as well, but you just don't see that many big health mage builds. It would be more always good value for magical solo laners and magical junglers. In those cases, it 100% is always good value, but I don't know if those are as favorable right now as a lot of the physical solo laners and junglers, right? Wraith Leggings, really solid. You do have a little bit more competition now at your flat pin magical item slot, but Wraith Leggings is still a big power number, big pin, movement speed on top, an extra damage passive. Hard to turn down Wraith Leggings and a lot of mid laners. If your goal is to deal damage, particularly if your goal at mid lane is to blow up the enemy carry or mage or assassin jungler, Wraith Leggings is probably your best option to give you the potential to do that. I probably should be in always good value realistically because there's no mage that's going to suffer from fitting this in as one of their 6 item slots. Do I build it every single game? No. Could I build it every game at mid and get value out of it? Absolutely. It's an always good value type item. And finally, Xenia, or Xena. I guess it would be Xenia maybe. This is the item that gives you your allies shields when they walk near you. Now when I say walk near you, they have to walk into you. They have to touch you basically to get the shield from this. It can give those shields out very frequently, and you can give them out to multiple teammates very rapidly, but I don't know. I think it's really decent for objective takes, I will say, but it's kind of a niche. You have to play into it. It's not something that you just play how you would normally play and you get good value with it. You've got to play into it more. So I think for that reason it is comp dependent, because you have to have good positioning to get the most out of it, but it is pretty solid otherwise. So that is all 164 items. Good grief. Let's go through here real quick and see if I want to move any of these out of any of the tiers that they're in. Always build tier. Aegis of Aguilar. I'm not going to order these within the tiers because this is way too many items to order within their tiers. They're just going to leave them alphabetically in the tiers that they're in. But just know they're close. They're close enough to be in the same tier, right? Aegis of Aguilar. Yes, Caustica, Demo, Imp, Magnify, Manta Scythe, Sky Splitter, Perforator, Bank, Viper. What do we have up here? Percent pin, execute, stacking, massive stat pool, percent armor shred, stacking armor shred, and max health, 2 physical power conversion with crit, with bonus armors. Yeah, now that's a clear-cut always build tier. Some of these other ones you could probably make an argument for sliding up there, but none of those can leave. There's no way around it. Ashbringer, Azure, Basilisk, Combustion. These are all always good value items for sure. Megacosm next, Overlord. Scatter is maybe not always good value, but it does set itself apart as the best wave clear option for carries. Resolution, also maybe not always good value. Hard to fit it in on a lot of carries, but solid in other roles too, so I think we leave it up here. Rapture, maybe I'm a little biased on that one. Tainted Guard, Tainted Rounds, Tainted Totem, Tainted Trident. Yeah. These all need to be up there. Typhoon facilitates any magical attack builds, auto attack builds. Vainglory's kind of a little personal preference, I guess, But as far as tank items go, it's really hard to compete with. I think it's like in combination with 1 or 2 other armor items as the tank, it's got to be your best addition the majority of the time. Void Helm, yeah, for sure. Wardens, for sure. Winters and Wraith, I like that. I like that tier. Personal preference tier. Build most games, basically kind of tier. Astral Cat, Og. Both the cursed items, they're niche. They could slide down realistically. Devotion, Dreambinder, Dynamo. Eviscerator maybe is a little too high here. Flux Gaia, Golems. Yeah, I think this all looks good. Orion is probably going to get nerfs, right? Pacifier, Plasma. Terminus, this might be, I don't know, that's probably appropriate for Terminus, right? This set of tainted items, yeah, a little bit weaker in most cases than this set of tainted items, I think, for sure. Psionic, I like Psionic a lot, for sure. Spirit, Solstice, yeah, these are all consistently valuable items. Oh, shoot, where did I just chuck that? World Breaker, yeah, I think that looks good. World Breaker is really solid for sure. Yeah, I like that. I like Wraith Leggings being up there, and World Breaker. World Breaker could sneak up there, I think, too. Highly hero and comp dependent. Absolution is very yeah. You start looking through these, yeah, we're talking about very comp dependent. Citadel, I think, actually could sneak up. I think Citadel is probably less comp dependent than most of these. I think we will sneak Citadel up, because if you have the personal preference to enjoy Citadel, then I would go for it. Dust Devil as well, I think, is almost never going to hamper you at carry. I think you're always going to get good procs out of it. I would put it above Equinox, I think. Gaia, Gaussian, yeah, Giants. Oathkeeper, yeah, this looks good. Mist Meadow you could sneak up to, but you don't necessarily need multiple magic armor items most games. Sanct Silentum Solaris. Soulbinder pretty niche. Spectra pretty niche. Stormbreaker, yeah. True Silver, Tyranny, Vanguard. True Silver is a very unique... It's just not worth it, man. It is a very unique proc that you sometimes need, but you don't always need. Even, like I said, even sometimes I'm playing Narb and I don't build it, so it is what it is. But they did buff it. It is in a good spot right now, for sure. Void, Vizier could slide up. It's actually probably better than I give it credit for. You don't see that many people using it. Wind Collars or anything. Yeah, I think that's good. And then rarely good value, Amulet of Chaos, Claw of Hermes, Dawnstar, Deathstalker, Demon, Echelon. Yeah. Runation, Warp Stem, yeah, for sure. If you disagree with any of these rarely good ones, let me know why in the comments. But that's going to do it. I like this, man. I like all this. I think this looks good. We will do an update to this. I'll do an update to this because I do expect item changes to be coming here in the next patch. Actually, pretty shortly here. We may already have patch notes out for those by the time this video goes live. So look for a patch notes video on those as well. Thank you for stopping by. Let me see if I can get this. I'll zoom out here and get this whole thing on the screen here so you can see it all at once, because this is a massive tier list. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Check out pred.gg to see all these in-depth item stats if you want, linked down below as well. It's where I pulled all these images from. It's a great resource. It's consistently improving as well. It's got so much win rate, pick rate data on it now. It's really great. So check that one out. We'll catch you guys in the live streams. This was a beast of a video. Thank you again so much for 700 subs. The Cove would not be what it is without all the goons in it. We will catch you guys, and keep enjoying Pred, folks. Just keep enjoying Pred.